They call me Joy in Bendel, but my mother named me Igbemudia. My life stands. Sometimes I say the full name to myself, slowly, like a prayer brought to the lips, a way to remind my spine that it must not bend for too long. I do not look like my mother, except for the roundness of the cheeks. Mine bear small constellations of sun freckles from all the times I walked under a sky that felt near enough to touch. My skin drinks the sun and keeps it. People say I glow when I'm angry. In this life, I have learned to burn quietly. I returned to Bendel at the start of mango season because the city had made my chest heavy. The horns and fumes, the rent that rose every quarter like a stubborn river, the way every face seemed to be rushing toward an invisible finish line. I came for my mother, to let her chatter chase the dust out of my ears, to taste ogbono, the way her left hand stirs it, clockwise, then pause, then a slow figure 8. So the soup tastes like patience. I came to sit under our pawpaw tree, where my father once tied a goat for Christmas, and laugh again at the memory of how that goat chewed our washing line. I came to inhale red earth after rain, that sweet iron smell that pretends it can heal every grief. I came because the city had stolen my sleep. I wanted the soft night noises of Bendel, frogs gisting in the gutter, far-off drums teasing the wind, a neighbour's cough that always came around too. The day I saw her, I was sitting with my mother in front of our house, our feet bare, our laughter easy. We were drinking palm wine from a reused plastic bottle because the calabash had cracked last harmattan. My mother had added a pinch of salt the way old women do, and we were counting dragonflies on the hibiscus. Then we heard the wheelbarrow. Before we saw the woman, rubber tire groaning over stones, a metal frame complaining like an old man. She came into the clear and the light found her. She was wrapped in ash-coloured fabric that did not decide whether it was white or grey. Her headscarf was tied in a way that hid every strand of hair, yet something silver still peeked through at the edges, like thread from a robe that had been stitched and re-stitched. Her face was a map of long roads, wrinkles etched deep as if carved by fingernails. She walked like someone measuring each step against a memory. When she smiled, only the right side of her mouth agreed. "Good afternoon, Mama Joy," she said, voice soft like cloth. "I have come to collect old clothes." My mother brightened. Her heart is a basin that fills for everyone. She disappeared into the room and returned with a small bundle tied with ankara, 2 wrappers shiny at the knees from years of use, a blouse that had surrendered its buttons, my father's shirt that still smelled of him on harmattan mornings if I closed my eyes long enough. My mother placed it gently into the woman's wheelbarrow, like one transferring a child. "God bless you, Mama D," she said. "May grace follow you. May your arms never tire." The woman replied, the half smile again, the right side obedient. She turned to me, and something in her eyes flickered. Recognition, maybe, or the way people search for where to place your face in their memory house. She nodded and pushed away. The wheelbarrow bumped once, twice. Then the sound folded into the road's patience. "Mama D," my mother said to me, unwrapping kola nut with her fingernails. She came months ago with nothing. People helped her. She said she found work, recycling clothes into socks and pillows. Every week she collects. See? God still makes ways. I lifted the bottle of palm wine, but did not drink. A hum began in my mind, faint, then clear. "I've seen her," I said, the words surprising my tongue. "In Benin City, near Oka Market. She used to collect clothes there too." My mother shrugged, her smile making room for doubt. "Maybe it's her sister," she said. "Or maybe God is multiplying widows now. Leave suspicion. Let old women breathe." I tried to let it go. I tried to tell myself that faces travel and stories change with road dust. But the hum stayed. It tucked itself under my pillow at night and refused to let me rest. I stayed another week in Bendel because my mother liked the way the air sounded. when there were two women breathing hope into a house. Each day, someone returned from the market with a new worry stitched to their forehead. Blessing lost the money she kept for her daughter's exam fees. She swore by the community borehole that she had put it in the tin beneath the raffia basket, and yet it walked away. Chica harvested yam that looked fat above ground and found rot inside. The tailor said her customers ghosted. Chairs sat empty while cloth breathed and waited. Men muttered into their afternoon beer that bad luck was dancing on the village, like a masquerade that refused to go home. When I asked, people said it was the season, or the government, or Mercury, in retro something. My mother folded wrappers and said, "What is happening is happening. We will pray. We will endure. But endurance has a taste, and this one felt smoky on my tongue." The next afternoon, the wheelbarrow groaned again. Mama D arrived, her back bent like a question mark. When she lifted a wrapper from another woman's hands, I saw her palms. Calloused, yes, but stained faintly black, in a way soap does not forgive easily. My breath paused. Maybe charcoal for cooking, I told myself. Maybe. Still, the hum in my mind swelled to a drum. I decided to follow her. I did not tell my mother because worry sits heavy on her. If you hand her a pebble, it becomes a boulder by evening. I tied a scarf low over my brows, wore slippers soft enough to kiss the ground. Without telling it, I had passed, and waited until the heat softened, and the shadows stretched their long arms across the road. When Mama D pushed her wheelbarrow from her compound, I stayed far enough that my smell would not announce me. She did not go toward the tarred road, toward the bus that pretended it went to the city, but always first broke down by the cassava mill. She turned left, where the ground cracked open into bush path. The trees bowed their heads to one another, and the light became sliced, like cola divided for friends. We walked a long time in a silence filled with insect prayers. I counted my steps the way you do when fear needs something to sit on. 1 to soften the heart, 2 to sharpen the ears, 3 to ask God to face me, 4 to ask him not to. At a small clearing where the ground dipped, as if someone's body had once slept there, she stopped. The world held its breath. From the wheelbarrow she lifted a sack, carefully, tender, almost. She unknotted it and arranged the clothes. Wrapper on wrapper, shirt on shirt, blouse on blouse. My father's smell rose for a second and slapped my face, and I had to anchor myself to a tree with my fingernails. Mama D brought out a small yellow plastic container, the type we used to refill lamps when NEPA forgot us. Kerosene. She poured it over the clothes like libation. Then she struck a match. Flame is a language. It licked and spoke quickly, folded fabric into its mouth, turned cotton into memory, and memory into ash. Smoke climbed the air like a spirit running home. She began to chant, "I know prayers." I know the sweet swing of my mother's morning altar, the way her voice goes soft around Our Father, like a tongue touching a bruise. This chant was not that. It was low and round. It dragged the vowels from her throat, the way fishermen drag nets into the canoe. Grunting, insisting. I could not catch the words completely, but I knew the sound of intention. It shook something inside me that had remembered to be afraid. When the fire died into red whispers, she carried the black remains. The clay pot had been waiting. She scooped the ash in with a wooden spoon, the same careful way you stir a child's pop. She covered it with a lid, lifted it with reverence, and pressed it against her chest, as if testing its heartbeat. Then she turned to leave. I stepped back into the bush and swallowed my breath. That night, I could not untie my muscles from fear. My mother asked why my food was untouched, why the OG went cold, why I chewed like a person shackled to her thoughts. I told her. My mother's eyes roamed my face, the way a torch roams a room during a power cut. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Joy, words can spoil an old woman's life." "Mama," I said, "the word a river. I am sure. I did not sleep. I waited for morning to put a hand on my head and bless me, and then I took a bus to Benin. The city was its usual stubborn self, sweaty and loud and ripe. I found Oka Market, the street with the peeling blue kiosk, the corner where a man sold bicycle bells and rechargeable lamps. The stories came like rain once I asked the right mouths. That woman, one man said, scratching his neck. We called her Iya Udo here, always collecting clothes. Said it was for charity, for recycling. After 2 months, shop after shop began to fall down like plantain in storm. I lost all my savings. My wife's hands refused to stop shaking for weeks. A woman added, "We later heard she burned the clothes, carried the ashes to one small altar. She vanished when we started to ask questions. Vanished like smoke." I carried their words in my pocket, like stones, heavy, certain. I returned to Bendel with 2 young men who were brothers, and anger folded into muscle. I did not want violence. I wanted truth. I wanted proof. I wanted my people to see what my eyes had swallowed. We waited until evening, the hour when things feel holy and dangerous at once. We found her in the clearing, kneeling before a fire that had learned her name. The pot beside her was already half full of night. As soon as she saw us, she tried a smile. It cracked in the middle and fell. "What is this?" she asked. "Why are you following me? Tell us what you are doing," I said, and my voice surprised me in its steady. "Tell us what your hands mean to these ashes. Tell us why our money walks and our yam dies. Tell us the truth, so we can find our way back to ourselves." "I am just an old woman," she started. The brothers laughed. "Short, mean. A recycling company in the city. Does the company pay for smoke?" I asked. "Do they sew pillows from ash?" The fire popped, like a small thunderclap telling us to hurry. The villagers arrived as if a bell had rung in their chests. One by one they stepped into the clearing, faces stiff with hope that we were wrong, and fear that we were right. Words flew like bats, short, dark, frantic. "Mama D," someone said. "Is it true?" She tried to stand tall inside her lie and failed. Her knees found the ground. Tears slid into the ash on her cheek and made mud. "Please," she said. "I am hungry in my life. I have children. They needed bridges. I had no money to build any, so I learned to build with other people's wood." "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already knew. She stared at the fire as if it might teach her a different answer. "I burn what they give me," she said. "I call their names with the smoke. The smoke carries their luck, their shine, their steps. It carries it away from their heads and places it on my children's feet, so they can travel the world and find chairs in rooms where their names fit. Each pot is a person. Each lid is a door. When I close it, their light follows my prayer." For a moment the world held a silence that tasted like iron. Then noise. The brothers moved forward, sticks raised with the kind of rage that eats and eats until it has no mouth left. "No," I said again, the word a plank of wood between a child and a river. "We need evidence. We need to show our people so we don't become like the thing we're chasing." We dragged her to her house, a small square of cement near the edge, where the village exhales into bush. Inside it smelled of old rain and something sweeter, rotten sweet, like fruit that refuses to die. We found the altar, not an altar the way churches arrange theirs, clean and bare. This one looked like someone's grandfather had taught it to be wicked. Clay pots in rows, each labeled with a charcoal mark, a symbol, a squiggle, a secret. A round mirror with brown stains at its edges. Black beads coiled like snakes too tired to hiss. Bundles of hair tied with thread. Wrappers cut into strips. Fingernails in a paper folded 4 ways. Rings that once kissed someone's vow finger. Names in the air, whether or not they were written. The room pulsed. My mother's wrapper was there, the yellow one with maroon flowers, tucked like a shy child in a corner, part of it torn. I do not remember moving. I only remember the sound my throat made, the kind of sound grief makes when it trips and falls. We carried it all outside. People gathered, mouths open, hearts flinching. Some cried, some cursed, some spat. A young woman I did not know stepped forward without ceremony. She lifted her skirt and passed water on the heap of fetish and memories. The sound was like rain touching fire. Mama D screamed in a way I had never heard a human scream, like something was being pulled from her brain, a root that had grown too deep. She shook, clutched at her chest, and folded into herself as neatly as a cloth collapses. The scream fell into the ground. Then she stopped being alive. For a long time, nobody spoke. The air felt new and dangerous, like a baby city. When someone finally asked what to do with the body, there were many answers, none kind. They took her to the forest and made a grave that did not know her name. I did not follow. I stood by the heap and pressed my palm on my mother's torn wrapper and told it, "Come back, come home." I gathered the clothes that belonged to us. I gathered the pieces of my soft fury and folded them too. The days after tasted like slow rain on cracked earth. We prayed at the church that has only 3 pews and a door that whistles when it swings. We poured libation at the big Iroko because not every wound is healed by only one language. We went to Pastor Joshua, who prays like thunder, and we went to the old woman who sells herbs and whispers the names of leaves. Utazi for stubbornness, scent leaf for clarity, ugu for blood. We washed doorways with water that had touched ash, then salt, then sunlight. People's steps began to remember rhythm. Money stopped walking away. Yams opened and told the truth. White, honest hearts. The tailor's stools filled again with stories. Cloth pinned for weddings. My mother's laugh returned from wherever it had been hiding. It ran through the house and jumped out the window and came back and hid in her throat to surprise us again. The village breathed differently. Sometimes I sit under our pawpaw tree with my palm at the base of my neck where fear once lay like a stone. And I think about the old woman. I think about the shape of desperation, how it sharpens its teeth on the bones of other people's futures. I think about clothes and how they hold the shape of the person who wore them. The elbow bend, the sweat mark, the scent of soap, the day your heart beat too fast, and the fabric remembered. I think about how we hand our lives to strangers without knowing how their hands were taught to hold. I think about the way fire always tells the truth, faster than any mouth. I am a dark-skinned woman with eyes that do not forget quickly. When I walk the market now, I watch what we give away. I bless it before it leaves my hand. I speak to my wrappers, to my skirts, to my father's shirt. Carry only the light I agree to. Carry the goodness that can be shared, and nothing else. I have learned that kindness must be guarded the way a mother guards sleep when babies are finally quiet. At night, when the frogs in the gutter begin their choir and the pawpaw leaves scrape each other softly, I say my name full, Igbamudia, and I tell the darkness stories. I tell it about the old woman who carried other people's mornings in a clay pot. I tell it about a village that almost forgot it was blessed. I tell it how we chased our light into the bush, how we dragged it home, how we stood it in the sun and told it to grow. I tell the darkness that we will not be easy again. I tell it that our clothes remember us. I tell it that when we wash, we scrub sorrow from the hem and sing while we ring. On such nights I sleep well finally. The moon crawls into the room and lays down by my feet like a contented cat. My mother snores gently in the next room. Somewhere in the distance, laughter spills as if it tripped over a stone. In my dream, we are all wearing our names like wrappers. Tight, bright, impossible to steal. And the wind, sweet with the smell of wood smoke and rain coming, keeps saying what my mother says when she ties a final knot. Ayan, it is strong now. It will hold. I did not plan to become the woman people came to for answers. It happened in the quiet way. Oil creeps across a pot and covers the surface, slow, then suddenly everywhere. The morning after we cleared the altar, I fetched water before the sky made up its mind about light. The borehole handle squealed its small complaint, and the bucket mouth grinned up at me, like a child waiting to be filled. The water came clear, then clouded, then clear again. I stood there thinking of how some lives do that too. The first girl arrived with a wrapper pressed to her chest like a wound. "Auntie Joy," she whispered, eyes refusing to look up. "I think my own is here." She opened the fabric, and I recognized it. A cream blouse with a stubborn stain of palm oil, the kind that laughs at soap. I had seen it on the altar heap, bound with red thread. Her hands were shaking so hard the blouse danced. I put my palm over her knuckles. "Breathe," I said. "Let your breath reach your fingers." By afternoon, the yard was a pile of stories. Shirts with frayed collars. Anchor that carried the smell of Sunday stew. A child's dress embroidered with crooked butterflies. A scarf that had comforted a woman across 3 funerals. Each piece carried a name that did not need ink. People arrived like rain, softly, unexpectedly, clinging to their clothes, the way a drowning person clings to a gourd. We decided to wash everything before we returned anything. My mother, who believes there is a prayer in every practical act, brought out blue soap and a basin the size of generosity. "Water first," she said, the bossy music of motherhood in her voice. Then salt, then a little palm wine, sweetness to cancel bitter. The women laughed and obeyed. The men stayed at the edges, pretending not to watch, then drifted closer, then finally knelt too, sleeves rolled, Pam's cupping fabric the way a father cups his baby's skull for the first time. Careful, disbelieving, reverent. We scrubbed. The sun climbed. Someone started a song, low. It was an old song, the type that lived in grandmothers' throats. The type Pam wine picks when it wants to remember being tree. We sang, stains lifted, threads brightened. The wind moved through the yard and patted our backs like an ant proud of our stubbornness. Children chased soap bubbles and called them angels. Every bubble burst into a small wet amen. When we rinsed, we lined the fence with color. For a moment, the yard looked like a procession, wrappers flapping as if speaking in the language of cloth. We left them to the sun and gathered under the pawpaw tree to drink water from a shared cup. I tasted iron and something else, a sweetness that reminded me of guava just before it ripens, the promise of coming goodness. The pastor came in the evening, shoes dusted, eyes bright with the hunger of deliverance. Behind him, Mama Ebo, our herbalist, walked in with a calabash that had its own dignity. Watching them together was like watching 2 old rivers join. They argued the way rivers do, loud, always sure they were right. Then they flowed side by side to the same sea. We prayed with fire and we prayed with leaf. We poured oil and we poured water boiled with 7 kinds of bark. We smeared door lintels with shea mixed with ash. We told the air our names until the air told them back. In the nights that followed, sleep returned in pieces. It came to some houses first, shy and cautious. It lingered at doorways, peeped into windows, tiptoed past the memory of an altar. Then it grew more confident and began to lay its full body down. Babies stopped waking and crying, midway through the hour without reason. Men no longer sat outside scratching at their worry like a rash. Laughter started small again, like a roadside fire, and then found big wood. But peace is a long cloth. You must keep straightening it, beating out the creases it gathers, as people sit and stand and sigh. My own cloth still had lines. In the quiet after we buried the woman whose name I could not say without tasting smoke, I felt a small stubborn question poking at my ribs. Who taught you this? Who made you an altar out of other people's lives? Who told you that your children's mouths deserve to be sweetened by our mornings? The letters arrived in an old biscuit tin. 2 days after the washing, a boy with a face full of new pimples and legs he had not yet grown into, came to our house with the tin balanced on his head. "Auntie Joy," he said, "the woman left this with my mother to keep. They forgot to carry it when they dragged her. My mother said I should bring it to you before people start using it to measure Gary." He laughed at his own joke. It cracked his voice into 2 different ages. He placed the tin on our table and ran away as if a label still burned his heels. The tin smelled like a place that had been locked for too long. Inside, letters slept like bones. Thin air mail papers, some still blue, some now the yellow of long teeth. Envelopes addressed in careful half-cursive to Mama, stamped from places whose names tasted foreign in our mouths. Luanda, Pretoria, London, Guangzhou. Photos of young men standing in front of cars that did not look like they belonged to them. Of a woman in a hospital uniform, with a face that had learned to arrange itself into competence. The letters spoke in 2 languages, glory and hunger. "Mama, things are still hard, but God is faithful. Mama, I have sent small money. Manage it. Mama, if not for you, I would still be in that village smelling of smoke." Between the lines, a howl. We built our ladder with other people's rungs. Between the lines, a lie. We didn't know. I read them sitting on the floor like a child who forgot she had grown. My mother sat beside me, glasses perched, mouth tight, eyes soft. "Ehen," she said at last. Pain has a mother too. It would have been easy to feed my anger until it grew into a lion that ate the world. But I have learned that some anger is useful only for lighting lamps. You must cup it, let it warm your hands, then set it down before it burns the house. I wrote a letter to the addresses I could still read through the years. I told them their mother had died. I told them how. I told them that mercy is not a currency we use to pay back theft. But we can decide not to be like the thing that made us bleed. I asked them to send money, not for my pockets, but for the roofs that had been postponed, for the farmland that needed new yam seed, for the children whose exam fees had learned how to disappear. I told them to write their fathers' names properly in their own mouths. I did not expect an answer. 2 wrote back, 1 by email, English clean and efficient, apology folded inside like a napkin. 1 by post, the edges of his words soft with shame, the ink bleeding as if the letters were crying. Money arrived, not enough to heal everything, but enough to buy quiet for a while. "We are sorry," one wrote. "We did not know." I sat with the letter and combed it with my eyes, searching for truth. My mother swatted my head. "Leave it," she said. "Some knowing is a sin people marry. Let God be the one to count the goats." I became the one who kept the list. Names, losses, small restorations. Even numbers behave better when they are watched. We bought yam seed. We built a zinc roof that no longer sang sorrow when rain came. We contributed to fees. We walked the line between help and humiliation with the care of a tightrope dancer who knows the ground is a teacher too. People started knocking on my door for things that had nothing to do with cloth. "Auntie Joy, what do you think of this boy?" "Auntie Joy, should we plant cassava this week or next?" "Auntie Joy, my daughter started seeing blood at 13. Is it not too early?" Sometimes I wanted to remind them that I was just one woman in slippers with a scarf that refused to tie properly on bad hair days. But they would look at me with that faith, the poor give the poor, and my mouth would learn how to answer. There is a market behind the market in every place, a space where people trade what cannot be weighed. I learned to walk there. I learned to speak in the voice that fear understands. When the boy who had laughed came back with eyes that wanted to be hard and could not, I sat him down and told him every secret I knew about being a man who does not eat other people's futures to feed his own. He listened the way goats listen, head tilted, deciding whether the leaves you are offering are worth their chew. Weeks later, he returned to say, "Auntie, I told my friends to stop collecting phones that fell off trailers. They insulted me. I told them, still." We both smiled like conspirators of good On the morning the first rainbow came, it arrived small, like a shy bead at the edge of the sky. Rain had scrubbed the world clean. The sun was not yet brave. My mother called me outside with the voice she uses for miracles and ripe pawpaw. "Come and see," she said, as if someone had spread a bedsheet of color across the air and asked us to lie on it. We stood there, two women with bare feet, our mouths open like children. "You see," my mother said, "God still knows how to draw." We held a Thanksgiving in the compound because gratitude must be visible or it becomes lazy. People brought what they could. Groundnuts lifted from their shells with proud fingers. Smoked fish wrapped in yesterday's news. Tomatoes that still believed in their own perfume. We cooked jollof that left the pot shining with satisfaction. We danced until our ankles remembered their youth. We told the story again, as if the telling itself were a broom. In the middle of it, I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot that had held too long. I looked up and whispered, "It is well." Not as a Nigerian lie to end awkward conversations, but as a declaration that my bones believed. Still, at night, I sometimes dream that someone is folding my name into a pot with ash. In the dream, my body begins to forget the steps it has learned. And my mother's laughter passes by the door and does not come in. I wake with my heart running. On those nights, I light a candle and sit by it and tell myself my own story again. I say, you followed because suspicion is sometimes holy. You washed because washing is sometimes worship. You forgave because forgiveness is sometimes the only way to let the knife slip out without tearing everything. I sit there until the candle's small, stubborn tongue has licked away the fear. When word of our altar trouble traveled to the next village, women began to arrive with their own stories of clothes and luck and the way kindness can be used as a pocket by those who hate mirrors. We started a small circle under the udala tree near the borehole, a place where we gather once a week to pray, to teach our daughters the old ways of guarding. We call it thread, because thread holds, because thread breaks, because thread connects cloth to cloth and story to story. We teach our girls to speak to their garments, to fold with intention, to sweep thresholds on Fridays, and laugh at fear on Sundays. We teach our boys to never romanticize hunger so much that they become familiar with theft's handshake. We say out loud that the poor can be wicked too. That wickedness is an equal opportunity applicant. We say out loud that nobody will eat the future of Bendel and lick their fingers again. I have written a new label over my heart. It reads, Keeper of Names. When I wash my mother's wrappers, I call each one by its pet name, Blue River, Red Rain, Harvest Sun. The way she taught me when I was small and the world still smelled like soaked beans. When I iron my own dresses, I press out not only wrinkles, but also the small burdens a day tries to leave in the cloth. Strangers' eyes, roadside curses, the ache of watching news from a country that sometimes forgets it owns joy. When I hang the clothes, I hang them with pegs, like prayers, and pegs like nails, and pegs like ancestors who refuse to let us fall. Some evenings, when the sun is the color of old palm wine and the goats are deciding whether to listen, a woman will stop by the gate and lean her elbows there, comfortable, like kin. Auntie Joy, she will say, do you know, since we washed that day, my sleep has become a good mattress. Or, the yam I planted after the washing grew, as if angels were the ones padding the mound. Or, I no longer hold my money under my pillow. I hold it inside my chest, where hope keeps its purse. And I will laugh and tell her to come in and eat. Food tastes better when testimonies have been walking around the pot. The old woman's grave in the forest is quiet. We did not mark it because some stories need to return to the earth without signs. Sometimes I carry a bottle of water there and pour it, not because my throat wants to forgive, but because the ground must not hold bitterness for too long. I say, rest to the soil, not to her. I say, Release. To the trees, not to her. I say to myself, stand, because my name demands it. On the afternoon, the wind ripped the clouds and let through a sun that felt like apology. I took out my father's shirt, the one that had traveled into fire and returned by stubbornness, and wore it. It hung too big on me, the way memories do. I rolled up the sleeves and smelled the ghost of him and the ghost of kerosene and the very alive scent of blue soap. I stood under our pawpaw tree, and my mother looked at me and began to clap small sweet claps with her fingertips touching, as if she were calling a toddler to dance. "Ian," she said, eyes shining. "You look like a woman who has seen the world and decided it will not carry her away." "Maybe I am," I said. Night came soft, like a truth finely spoken. The moon was an egg broken over the sky. The frogs started their choir and nobody shushed them. I lay on my mat and listened to my mother sleep. And through the window, the clothes on the line breathed like animals dream-walking. I slept. If you ask me now what I learned, I will not list verses or proverbs or the long wisdom of my mother's age. I will take you to the line where our clothes dry, and I will show you how cloth, when it is washed with intention, holds light differently. I will ask you to press your palm to your chest and to say your name until your bones answer. I will tell you that not every old woman is a saint, and not every young woman is a fool, and not every generosity is safe. I will tell you that we live in a world where altars are both bricks and breath. I will tell you that the work of our life is to pull our names back from every pot, every mouth, every story that tries to own them, and then to hang those names in the sun and watch them dry and smile and go on.